Time to get started on my next video. Say, what month is it? Transducers live and ready to fry. It's alive.
It's alive! It's alive!
You're listening to Majuo on OverShock. Majuo, also known more conventionally as King of Demons, is a 1995 run-and-gun platformer released exclusively in Japan for the Super Famicom. It failed to be localized, most likely due to a variety of graphic and disturbing imagery that it featured, from granulated gore to pixelated nudity, that likely didn't meet with Nintendo of America's family-friendly standards at the time. One particular moment I imagine would have raised an issue or two with parents would happen to be this infamous scene on the subway stage where a duo of jackal-headed demons flay a woman to death with pikes. Developed by the, as of 2004, now defunct Kamakura Superstation, better known as simply KSS Inc., King of Demons was one of the very few video games they ever bothered to produce, alongside the likes of fucking Casper for the Super Nintendo. No. Not that Casper for the Super Nintendo. That Casper for the Super Nintendo. Their main line of work tended to be focused on animation, mostly in the realm of direct-to-home video media such as OVAs. This includes a few series you may have even heard of, such as Golden Boy, Oh My Goddess, one of the Battle Angel Alita OVAs, and the incomplete 2-episode Fire Emblem miniseries, which, believe it or not, was actually the very first piece of Fire Emblem media to be brought to English audiences.
Gordon, let them go!
Let them all go, but Mars!
There's no need to go after those who fled. We have much bigger fish to fry.
4 years before Marth and Roy would make an appearance in Super Smash Bros. Melee, and a whole 7 years before the release of Blazing Blade for the Game Boy Advance. But what I'm sure is really gonna snag your pervy little peepers is the fact that KSS is responsible for the creation of the adult animation brand Pink Pineapple. Wait, what? You mean the same guys that produced this game also produced the 3-episode Rape Man animation?
That's okay, bitch. You don't gotta laugh. But tell me you don't want his body. For real, tell me you don't, or else it ain't rape.
Oh, not that I would know anything about that kind of stuff, of course. After all, I'm more of a green bunny man myself. Not that any of that matters anymore. With KSS's untimely demise, all of its assets now belong to the company Soft Garage, known for creating the GR Giant Robo animated series. Again, not that Giant Robo series, that Giant Robo series, alongside a brand of big titty mouse pads, which means King of Demons is not quite abandonware like Little Samson was, though I might be talking out of my ass with that one, since while Sir to Wave is long since dead, Taito lives on as a subsidiary of Square Enix. In fact, Soft Garage endorsed a limited re-release of the game for collectors in 2018 via the retroware company Columbus Circle. This makes this review rather timely, since they are also planning to release a 30th anniversary edition sometime in the coming November. However, back in 2024, Retrobit also released their own version of King of Demons, apparently making use of a different translation patch than the one that I'm currently playing with, which was created through the Aeon Genesis translation team all the way back in 2005. And thank God for that, as that means we can fully enjoy this tour de force of cinematic storytelling, all delivered to us in a riveting 3 whole paragraphs of dialogue, all of which, when read aloud, sounds eerily similar to the cheesy prologue of Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves.
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions. But enough talk! How about you?
Miraculous strength!
The plot of King of Demons concerns our decidedly very Rambo-looking protagonist named Abel, setting out on a quest to rescue his wife and daughter from the clutches of the eponymous King of Demons, as he straight up pimp walks his way directly into his fortress. The nitty-gritty of the game's specific narrative details vary from source to ever unreliable source, and without a proper manual, there's not a lot I can go on in terms of context like I could with Little Samson. Whatever the case, it feels as if there is an entire episode of this game's events that we are just not privy to, as there's a significant rapport that is implied between Abel and this minor recurring antagonist named Bear, who looks like Blau from Panzer Dragoon for some reason. Whether he's a long-term arch-nemesis or a close family friend gone mad, Bear appears in the opening seconds of our quest to stand in our way, claiming to have personally delivered your wife and child to the Demon King's clutches in exchange for his spanking new draconic form, sucker punching you so fast it's near instantaneous. This leads to a rather confusing sequence where Abel somehow sees the spirits of his wife, daughter, and their pet cat, encouraging him to fight on. This somehow awakens a supernatural power in the player that allows him to fight back against Bear and send his scaly ass back to the frozen shithole that is level 4 where he belongs. Now, I believe Stuart Hunt of Retro Gamer magazine said it best when he bluntly stated that King of Demons was essentially Castlevania with a gun. But that's not entirely apt. There are, of course, a multitude of cosmetic similarities, such as Abel's Belmont-like gait, with his nigh constant strutting, and how every time you slay a major boss enemy, they drop a crystal that makes me feel I should throw a fucking oak stake at it. But the only thing King of Demons has in common mechanically with Castlevania is its dreaded knockback, one that will frequently find you dropping to your doom on a number of occasions as you are tossed ass over tea kettle into the abyss of some convenient chasm by so much as a chill autumn breeze. This, of course, turns the Demon Train stage into a veritable death trap, as swooping imps whiz by your head constantly to send you tumbling backwards between the train cards as they just shred your extra lives like a warm knife through butter. The sickest thing, of course, is that this became one of the most significantly seminal aspects of the Castlevania franchise that persisted all the way up until when longtime series contributor Koji Igarashi somehow decided it was such a fantastic idea to have it kept all the way through the Bloodstained franchise. No. Not 8-way directional whipping, the thing that allowed for the player to have more control over their character and actually fucking hit things when you needed to. Fuck that. That's stupid. That's not Castlevania. Falling back into an instant death pit for the unmitigated gall of daring to be hit by a single enemy? That needs to stay. Actually, King of Demons stands head and shoulders amongst almost 90% of the Castlevania games, and yes, I am dying on this hill, but I swear to God I'm taking you with me on that fact. For starters, Abel begins the game with what looks like a Desert Eagle, and a gun generally possesses a distinctive range advantage when compared to a dinky old leather whip. It also doesn't require any ammunition, and thus will not run out of bullets, nor does it ever require to be reloaded. It's practically a hit scan weapon, as it casually strikes across the entire width of the screen. Just, you go ahead and tap that little button right there, and boom! Some shitheel skinwalker is picking his teeth out from the wall 6 feet fucking behind him. So, even though Abel is only capable of looking down the iron sights of his gun with his arms perfectly stretched out in front of his face like the goddamn Frankenstein monster, unable to perform such daring feats of finesse such as this, or this, or this, all of his weapons fire about as quickly as you think they should, which makes things just about as satisfying to play as a round of Super C. He also puts the agility of the Belmont clan to shame, as those cunts can't so much as walk up a flight of stairs without dropping dead. But our boy Abel here, he can fucking fly, as he is capable of performing a double jump at any point while midair in order to redirect his descent, dodge oncoming attacks, or vault over obstacles. Speaking of dodging, Abel's move list comes packed with an odd inclusion when it comes to 2D platforming games, as jumping while ducking will perform a combat role that is normally reserved for 3D games. It reminds me of a bit of Sonic's Insta-Shield from Sonic 3, since it has a very specific usage that isn't quite what is advertised at first. Since the Insta-Shield is a translation misnomer of the W spin attack, and isn't meant to be a defensive maneuver, but an offensive one to extend Sonic's hitbox, despite its limited ability to bypass and reflect certain projectiles. In the case of Abel's somersault, it does technically have a small amount of iframes that can perhaps be viewed under an electron microscope, but it's not really a preventative measure, but a preemptive one, meaning in order to make good use of it, you have to be aware ahead of time what's coming at you so you could just get the hell out of the way. The most effective example of this in action is the spider boss in the elevator, as the primary strategy revolves around deking his grapply attack that he performs while descending from the ceiling, while also cleaning up his useless slime minions. All of this is ingrained in our character's repertoire from the very onset, but he gains access to two new abilities being resurrected during the fight with Bayer. The first one, which is immediately evident from an additional meter that spawns under your health bar. Holding the attack button charges it, causing it to flash with electricity, and I swear I've seen some fighting game use this effect in one of their super meters. This performs a charge attack when letting go, which has a shorter range than the gun, but covers a wider area of impact and deals multiple hits upon contact. This might be a rather situational technique due to the varied placement and behavior of enemy and bosses, so it's really up to intuition on whether or not you want to spam basic bit shots all day, or to try to pinpoint precisely unleashed charge shots on larger enemies' weak points. Abel's health also steadily increases whenever he reaches 5,000 points or more, while also receiving an extra life for every 10,000 points. Wow, what a concept. This game doesn't even have a high score table. Might as well put those points to good use somehow, I suppose. Possibly the most ephemeral weapon in our hero's arsenal is this random dropkick he does, which only ever comes out when it feels like it and is a wholly unreliable attack. I swear, I tried to figure out a consistent manner of performing it. I've only managed to confirm that it only works while in the air while pressing down on the control pad. That seems simple enough, but does it only work during a double jump or a regular jump? Do I have to press the attack button while I'm falling? Can I only perform the move from a certain height or when I'm falling after a set amount of time? Does simply pressing down work, or do I hold it? And when do I press down? Is it before, after, or during the height of my jump? Is it even during the height of my jump? Who knows? All of this on its own would make for a fine run-and-gun platformer. But one of the things that keeps King of Demons fresh, and justifies multiple playthroughs, are these jewels that are dropped after defeating one of the game's bosses. Not all bosses, mind you, just the major ones with proper health bars. The crystal in question solely shifts between three colors, red, green, or blue. Each color corresponds to a different demon form that Abel can transform into until he finds the next one. However, there is a secret mechanic that isn't quite apparent on a first playthrough. Either by collecting only a single color of crystal throughout the game, or by collecting one of each color, you unlock a new, more enhanced form to help carry you through to the endgame. In the case of the single color playthrough, it's an enhanced EX version of your current form with modified abilities. Collecting all three crystals throughout the game will cause the fourth one you find to turn gray and grant you the purported ultimate form that is essential in unlocking the game's best ending. Red transforms Abel into some form of salmon-hued mutant that retains both Abel's dumbass bandana and his torn-up dad jeans as if he just finished turning into the Hulk. Another thing that he keeps on him is his combat roll, which is exactly the same in his human form. His gun has been replaced by a green energy boomerang that he hucks from his elbows. These fly in a looping arc that have this nifty habit of striking at enemies peeking underneath ledges, but are somewhat unpredictable in whether or not they might just swerve around an enemy with their erratic movements. They also produce this really shrill, ear-splitting noise. I presume to be reminiscent of a saw blade, that makes me wish this game also got the shrill SFX patch like Little Samson got. The Red Mutant's charge move is a bit more consistent, powering up into a whirling red fireball that is both stronger and stays on screen longer than Abel's conventional Ko-O-Ken. His dive kick also changes, this time looking more like Akuma's traditional Tenma Kujin Kyaku, with a green energy arrow around his foot. I feel as if the red form might have gotten the shaft when it comes to upgrades, as when you collect your third red crystal, he gains this miserable buzzsaw attack that makes some bosses nearly impossible to beat since it refuses to fire in a straight fucking line. The green demon is a tad harder to describe. He looks like this chitinous insect with a single cyclopean eye glowing beneath his armored cowl. He possesses a piercing laser that travels through struck enemies and obstacles to attack whatever's on the other side of them unimpeded. His charge attack is the sonic boom that reaches the farthest out of any of the default forms to do a decent clip of damage. But where he really lacks is how they changed his dodge move. Oh, sure, it looks cool. It's a ninjutsu teleport. How can you go wrong? Well, you can make its distance really stubby, so that it's difficult to evade attacks and oftentimes cause you to blunder right into them. It does make you completely disappear for a brief instance, but it's just not long enough for it to be worth it. Big Green's EX form increases the size of his energy beans and grants him probably one of the most potentially destructive of all the charge attacks. It's this energy missile that spreads out in 4 directions and also explodes, with each of its shrapnel projectiles also exploding in a sort of 5-for-1 clusterfuck that each land as many hits as a single standard charge attack. So, if you can somehow drop all 5 blasts on a single target, it would probably look something like the char-broiled Sarah Connor after the nuke drops in Terminator 2. But, when you know it, my favorite character just so happens to be the dragon. Just like last time! Who'd have thunk it? The dragon form doesn't gain any aerial capabilities, no flight, or even so much as a triple jump, which is a little disappointing. His primary aerial maneuver to justify him having this pterodactyl-like body is his dive bomb attack, that pretty much is the best falling attack in the game, as it allows you to reliably triangle jump attack enemies over humps and hills. With his rather avian silhouette, it seems almost appropriate that his dodge roll becomes this scurrying chicken run, probably clearing the most distance out of all of Abel's monster forms and allowing him to more reliably clear long gaps. Given how each of Abel's forms had a special move that was very similar to his base form, I imagine that the dragon's fireball attacks is meant to be similar in nature to Abel's pistol. Sure, it's bigger, but it fires at the same rate and clears across the screen just as fast. It's just visible. That's all. Yeah, that's it. We'll go with that. Visible. His charge attack is only just okay as well. It's pretty stubby on range, but has this upwards arc that can hit enemies slightly above him, though the way it swerves lets it stay within a stationary boss's weak point for slightly longer, allowing it to land more of its total hit count while still on the screen. But stay with me now. Dragon Abel totally makes up for it, I promise. Since we enter into a whole new ball game after picking up the 3rd blue crystal, since EX Dragon Abel can straight up fucking air dash with his enhanced charge attack. That's right, EX Dragon combines his dodge attack and charge attack into a single super move that encases him in a draconic aura that sends him careening across the screen and damaging everything in its path, all while being in-air compatible. Worried about enemies hiding behind corners? Have no fear, citizen. The aura of the charge move is actually detachable and carries on without the player if they happen to get caught on something like a ledge or a wall, and easily obliterates whatever's on the other side of it. Kinda reminds me of Shin Getter Robo's Shine Spark attack and the way it just kinda gets flung off him in such a destructive fashion. You wanna know what the best part is? Apparently someone on the design team likes dragons about as much as I do, since someone thought to themselves, hey, wouldn't it be really inconvenient if the attack that recklessly sends you flying across the screen gets you killed because it sent you hurtling into an enemy attack or something? And so they gave it iframes. Honest to God, invincibility frames during and after your fatal flight that keep you safe and cozy on dismount. This allows you to hastily soar through the level as you mow down all those obnoxious imps and those other fluttery nuisances without ending up in harm's way. Then there is the final Grey Crystal, only revealed after the battle with the penultimate demon boss at the top of the Infernal Tower, after having acquired and mastered all of the 3 prior forms, grants the player the ultimate form, sometimes referred to in some circles as the Demon King or the King Demon. It's this towering gunmetal grey warrior with clawed hands, taloned feet, gleaming feathery wings, a long yellow tail, a unicorn horn, and to top it all off, big floppy elf ears for good measure. He's certainly a rather impressive specimen to say the least, but for all the work you put into him, I was more impressed with the dragon form. Now don't get me wrong, he's tough, I'll give him that. But his dive kick isn't as capable as the dragon's, his charge attack isn't as powerful as the Bugman, and his dodge roll retains his normal standing hitbox instead of his ducking one, since he just sort of T-poses himself across the screen. He almost seems tailor-made for the final stage of the game. I don't know why, it's probably because that's the only place you can actually play as him. His charge special is fairly unique, since it's this impressive-looking sequence where he punches his fist into the ground and emits a trail of 4 infernal towers that slink along the ground. They're okay and all, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the simple energy blast that goes in a straight line, you know? And seriously, it doesn't go the whole length of the screen? He's supposed to be the ultimate form! It's the end of the fucking game! You're telling me he can't keep a special attack going on for more than a few seconds? Christ! Even bother working to snag the ultimate form if he's not anything special? Well, the primary reason is that you will be locked out of achieving the game's true ending without him. Which is odd. It's like not being able to fight Ganondorf unless you snag the Big Bronze Sword, or being locked out of the final battle with Majora without the Fierce Deity's Mask. Sure, they're helpful, but mandatory? But the main justification is just the simple fact of his raw power. He takes the least amount of damage out of all of Abel's transformations, and while his not-so-special moves aren't insanely impressive like the EX forms, he's just capable of dishing out so much punishment with his basic attack that it pretty much renders his other attacks pointless. The Ultimate Demon is actually representative of a larger problem I find in some games, something called the 11th Hour Superpower, some sort of last-minute upgrade that games pass on to you right before the final level or boss that you only really get to use just moments before the credits roll. It's something that really bothers me, especially when you're essentially working your ass off to get something that sort of invalidates the past 20 hours of game time. Like, in the original Onimusha Warlord, you can unlock a super powerful sword called the Bishamon Sword that can kill any enemy in a single hit, but you only get it right before fighting the final boss, Fortinbras, and only after busting your ass fighting through the Dark Realm to find an ocarina that unseals the door blocking it. So, fuck all that time spent powering up my other 3 weapons, everything just narrows down to whacking the end of all creation with my instant death stick. Sure would have been nice to have this thing earlier when I was getting my ass kicked by the other Genma bosses. What about the very first Devil May Cry? Sure, this thing got a huge overhaul on DMC5, but the first time Dante picks up his father's sword Sparta, it doesn't even have the courtesy to fucking DT. Not until you fail to fill your Dark Soul with light against the battle with Mundus, and it suddenly transforms into a completely different game where the only weapon you can even use is Sparta. Really makes me appreciate the Mega Man X games, where getting all of the cool armor for X and Zero isn't just some arbitrary metric of right before the game is over. It's about exploring the different Maverick levels and discovering each individual piece for yourself and at your own pace. You can even plan your entire run around getting the ultimate armor as early as possible, if you know where to look, which gives you the chance to wield it through a solid majority of the game. It's not like it's a deal breaker or anything, I just prefer for things to be more under my control rather than devs won't let me have it because they say so. Still, at least there's a plausible excuse for why it comes so late in the game. But that's just another advantage to gun for one of the EX forms, since you can get one of those just that much sooner. There is a stage select code that you can perform which allows you to skip to any one of the game's 6 primary stages, even allowing you to select the introductory level as a sort of 0th stage. It's kind of funny when you end up pulling it off, since it's easily something you can end up finding by accident if you're supremely bored. Just press the select button 15 times so that it ends up on options, and you will see a list of numbers from 0 to 6 pop up below the sound settings. But there aren't any options or cheats to select any other kind of parameter, like what form Abel starts with, so you'll always be starting a level in your human form no matter what, and if you skip to even somewhere as early as stage 2, you'll skip the first boss, which looks like Cyrene from Devilman merged with the Meatball Man from Runbow, so you won't even be able to get the ultimate form and the proper ending if you cheat. Also, if you want to quick start the game by bypassing the intro with Bayer, where he kicks your ass, you're still losing out, since it costs you one of the 3 possible chances to pick up the Maria power-up. This makes it somewhat frustrating that King of Demons doesn't have any kind of save system, not even a simple password, to allow you to pick up and play at a later date. I understand that it's a pretty short game. I managed to play through it all at least 3 or 4 times in an afternoon collecting footage, but that still feels wrong to me. Oh yeah, this little green fairy here, you find right before you enter the first level, is a rare power-up you only find in 3 spots across the entire game. Once in the intro, once in the train, and one final time in the tower. It's actually the lingering spirit of your deceased wife Maria, having transformed to a small pixie after she presumably died protecting your daughter from being kidnapped by Bayer. She proves herself to be a fairly articulate companion, as being the only active power-up in the game, she serves a multitude of different functions. First, acting as a guardian satellite capable of destroying enemies just by touching them. Which, incidentally, conveys a small radius of protection just above Abel's head, preventing a few choice enemies from getting the drop on him. Her main function is that she launches out to automatically attack in time with Abel's movements, dealing additional damage to any foe she makes contact with, and sometimes allowing you to double tap fiends you might have missed with your standard attack. Being a loyal wife, Maria sticks around through almost anything, as she can't be hit by opposing fire, and will even remain with Abel if he falls into an instant death pit or loses a life. But this is a matrimonial arrangement after all, and you know what they say, it's death do us part. So whenever Abel's life hits 0 from an enemy attack or obstacle, Maria rushes in to restore Abel's condition without costing you a life. And if you already happen to have Maria on hand, finding a second Maria out in the wild will act as a full health pickup. There are more standard health pickups found throughout the stage, but they're actually rather awkwardly placed. It feels as if you're either never finding them when you desperately need them, or finding too many of them when you're already topped off. They only recover a small fraction of your health anyhow, so I don't know why they have to be so oddly stingy. There is one place in the penultimate tower stage where you can reliably find an infinite number of them to keep your health full, but you get cut off from it as soon as you pass by the lava trap and end up having to fight 2 more bosses before you can find any more. There also aren't any apparent health power-ups in the final stage either, so you better hope you don't lose too much HP fighting Dracula from Circle of the Moon here, or else you're totally... Holy shit! Did I just eat that fairy? Oh man, are you kidding me? I can eat enemies to restore my health? I didn't know that! I just assumed that the corpses being left behind was some aspect of the game's dismal atmosphere, not a core gameplay concept. Fuck me. Yeah, if you didn't know it before, certain enemies you kill end up leaving behind a body, and by crouching next to them, Abel will consume them to restore a small amount of his health. This is the only time Abel can generate invincibility frames, by the way, the only other time being after he ends the EX Dragon's charge attack. Suspiciously, there are only 2 types of enemies that even leave behind a corpse, and both of which are female in appearance. Yeah, this game really seems to have issues with girls, as it depicts them being tortured, maimed, or killed throughout the story. Your wife gets killed, your daughter's kidnapped, there's all these women prisoners rattling around in their cages in the background of the sewer level, and of course, the Jersey Devil scene on the train. This is a rather infamous moment that I mentioned at the beginning of this review that I think everyone kind of knows about to some degree, but suffice to say, it's just this out-of-nowhere moment from right before you fight the level boss, of these 2 jackal-headed demons without any shirts on, smacking some random human girl with rakes. You can't really do anything to hurt them. They're completely invincible up until they're finished, and there's really no way to save the girl. It's fine to think that a game like Night Trap, where the entire objective is to save the girls from being murdered, and the player is actually punished for not rescuing them, helped inspire the ESRB alongside Mortal Kombat. So you could imagine the kind of stink that would be drummed up by pearl-clutching parents if this game hit American shelves. I suppose you could call it disturbing, but I'm not really sure what the meaning behind it is, so it really just comes off as kind of pointless. But it's the only moment in the whole game that's like that, so it's at least worth mentioning for how out of pocket it is. That's not to say there aren't other peculiar moments littered throughout the game. Like, how about in the second battle with Bayer in the Ice Palace, he gets crushed by this giant woman encased in crystal, which then transforms into fucking Space Godzilla? I suppose that makes sense. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla did premiere just a year before this game came out. What a thing to see. There's even this lopsided-looking googly-eyed thing that kind of reminds me of Hetero, the smog monster. Sort of reminds me of some of those off-the-wall moments in Revenge of Shinobi. Like, remember the time Shinobi fought Batman, Spider-Man, and Mechagodzilla? That was a trip. There's even a rather eclectic cast of enemies in this game as well. My favorites being the shotgun-wielding miniskirt girls, the zombies whose heads you can blow clean off their shoulders, these skull-headed turrets that fire live bullets, and these gloomy-looking flowers with a face. The environments of King of Demons are also pretty vivid and imaginative, with tons of lush detail and dreary locales that prove hard to ignore. There's just so much going on in them, from the dilapidated city to the sewer prison, the rusty train car pulled by a living creature with an exposed heart. Then there's this massive whale-like creature that appears in level 4, and it's just this fixture at the top of the stage that tries to crush you, but it's so huge I can't help but mention it. Even the more standard-looking levels have something memorable about them in either design or palette that makes them stand out. In the ice level, there's this layer of mist that just kind of hovers over everything, and the fire level is this boiling castle that looks like it's sinking into hell itself. But I think the bosses are what really steals the show half the time. Since there's so many of them, it's giving me Alien Soldier flashbacks, where it's practically this boss rush with only a few sparse strips of platforming to bridge the gap. There's this flying millipede that feels ripped right out of a treasure game, the train boss that's actually the train itself and crashes into the next level entrance when it dies, the plant lady with whip-like arms, this decomposing dragon skeleton, and probably the strangest of all being this snake creature with a head that's clearly repurposed from the squid enemy all the way back in level 2. The one thing that helps some of the numerous mini-bosses feel so energetic is their catchy theme song that makes me almost excited to fight them again. There's a couple of standout tracks in this game, particularly the songs from levels 4 and 5 that have this triumphant feel as Abel nears his goal of getting his revenge and rescuing his daughter. They have this droning quality that gets lost in all of the cacophonous noise of gameplay. Gotta say though, the level intro music, which sounds like a clock bell tower, chilling. Who doth the bell tolls? It tolls for thee. Do you know what that means? It's time to wrap things up with the final level, smack dab in the middle of this demonic sphincter that serves as the final stage of the game. I know it might seem crass to refer to this as Satan's asshole and all, but it's filled to the brim with intestinal parasites. What the hell am I supposed to call it? It's a boss gauntlet where only a few sparse fairy nests are found between enemies to keep your strength up, while you're mostly doing away with recolors of several previous mid-bosses with altered attack patterns. All of which leads up to a final encounter with the titular Demon King, and things get pretty weird. And that's saying a lot, considering what we've seen so far, don't you think? His first form is exactly like what you would expect, just this large sprite that takes up the entire screen and spits projectiles out at you. One interesting quirk that he has is that each of his attacks comes from a specific limb that can then be knocked off as his health dwindles down to a set amount. His horns unleash bolts of electricity that shock the ground, his eyes shoot lasers, and he breathes fire from his mouth. And for a final boss, he's pretty bitch-made. I had way more trouble with the fucking eyeball boss from level 2, especially when he started whizzing around the room like a deflated balloon. But once the Demon King gets decapitated, something rather unexpected occurs, as from a slit on his forehead emerges a pink cat girl that completely rocks my shit. Somehow your daughter ended up merging with your pet cat to become this monstrosity, and is now trying to kill you in the bottom of hell for some reason. I think that has something to do with her newly ingrained animal instincts, as she doesn't actually make a move to attack you until at first she's approached, causing her to rear back and shriek like a cat. Another neat touch is that, like father, like daughter, Iria, that's the daughter's name if I haven't mentioned it already, possesses a moveset very similar to yours. She has a basic projectile, a charging star like the EX Dragon, and that same shitty dive kick as it was somehow Abel's signature move or something. But if you die, you end up having to fight the Demon King boss all over again. I give the game some credit for at least having a checkpoint after the previous mid-boss, as the game has routinely had a checkpoint after every mid-boss so far, but this is so exhausting. Having to fight two really long bosses without so much as a health restorative is fucking criminal. And there isn't even a Maria Fairy to use as a backup. So I really sure hope you didn't use her up on the way over here, since she's pretty much gone throughout the rest of the game. It's really funny to think that an enemy so small ended up causing so much trouble. But I beat her, not once. Well, at least twice, since I had to make sure to see all the endings. The good ending you can only get with the ultimate form isn't really so interesting, but I think it's best not to spoil it.
He said it! He said it!
Instead, take a look at the gonzo bad ending, since it's really just Abel blowing away his daughter without ever realizing who she is. It should be really tragic, but it's actually morbidly hilarious because of just how much of a psycho he is for doing this. Sure, she attacked him, but he doesn't seem to put together that the cat monster that emerged from the same place his daughter was screaming for help from aren't somehow related. And no, there's no unique art for getting the bad ending as a specific character, since Abel always reverts to his human form regardless. So, final thoughts? King of Demons really had the potential to be an all-time classic on the SNES, a real contender that could go up against some of the best action titles on the system. It's short, certainly, could have even done with 1 or 2 more levels, but it's just so packed with character that I can't help but think of it fondly. It certainly has some polish to it, but considering that this company was primarily known as a producer of animation, I would have loved to have seen the alternate reality where this game was crafted by more experienced hands. It does leave me with this faint tingle of wanting just a little bit more. It doesn't have exactly the same sort of spooky atmosphere as a Castlevania game, or the same high-impact, high-octane action as a Contra game. It rests somewhere sort of in the middle, almost like one push to the right or left would have it go either way, into a more pure horror or a more pure action game. Whatever the case may be, I actually had quite a blast going through this game, and I hope that somehow you find a way to do so too, by any means necessary. Folks, have yourself a happy All Hallows Eve. Just remember to stay safe as your little ghouls and boils stalk amongst the rows of tombs and graves, trouncing atop the hallowed remains of the restless dead. But remember most of all, you heard it here first, live on OverShock.